Hi, everybody. I'm Professor Roseman, and I want to welcome all of y'all to our Promise Day events. This is our fifth annual Promise Day event, and if you haven't been with us before, I just wanted to kind of give a brief plug. Um, April is National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And for this month, and also in the month of October for domestic violence, over the past 5 years, we at Wake Tech, faculty, staff, students have gotten together to bring speakers in to educate, to inform, to equip us, to have really good conversations. Around how we can respond to sexual violence and also to work towards preventing, to really work towards building a safer community together. And it is a community effort. So I wanted to recap real quickly. If y'all got to join us on Monday, we had one of our own professors, Cynthia Bookwright-Leons. She's with our cybersecurity team, and she really gave an overview of the problems of harassment, stalking online, what that problem looks like, and just the gravity of the situation, as well as some practical strategies to stay safe online. So if you haven't gotten the opportunity to see her presentation or you couldn't join us live, we'll share links and make sure that you have the opportunity to go back and to view that recording. So today we are really excited to have back with us one of our community partners, Sharice Potts of InterAct. And Sharice has partnered with us for the last few years, and it's just been wonderful throughout the pandemic, in fact. And we're so thankful and grateful to have her with us. She's an incredible educator and advocate and very passionate about the work that InterAct does. She shares presentations about domestic violence, sexual violence more generally, helps to coordinate events. And really, like I said before, she is working on broadening InterAct's, their reach, all the work that they do in the community, even through faith communities. And we're really excited to partner with her here at Wake Tech in the college community. Sharice got her Bachelor of Arts in Criminology and Master's in Public Administration from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. She is a New Yorker at heart, but truly enjoys living in North Carolina. She's a wife, mom of three, and enjoys, in her free time, spending time with family, reading, watching all kinds of action and romance movies. And with that very brief introduction, I will just say thank you so much, Sharice, for being here. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Paige. Thank you, Claire. It has been a pleasure partnering with you all these past few years for Promise Day. So I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited on what we're going to discuss today and y'all participation. So we're going to start off with a great activity that I like to do just to get our juices going, to get our minds thinking. Because oftentimes when we talk about domestic violence, sexual violence, and relationships, often we think that we know a little bit more than what we do. And so this activity is just a little test to see, do we know what abusive and unhealthy relationships look like? Do we understand the things, the dynamics that are happening within those relationships? So we're just going to do a quick activity. And what it is we're going to look at some scenarios, and then we're going to decide if they are, if we should just go ahead with this relationship. Should we slow down, use some caution, get to know that person a little more? Or should we just stop and go no further? So we kind of have our answers in light of the stoplight. Green means go, yellow means slow down, use a little caution, and red is stop. So those are the answers that you can give for each scenario. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that and see what you all know.
And sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier, but there is in the chat, you'll see a survey activity link. It's polev.com/sunnyocean021. And like Sharice was saying, you'll see 5 of those scenarios to go ahead and click through. Oh, and thank you. It's coming up on the live stream, and it's available in the chat there as well.
And
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can't see the questions right this second.
Oh, yeah, and that's on me. I'll be sharing my screen in just a sec here. It'll just take a minute.
So hopefully y'all having an opportunity to see those questions so we can take a look and see what you're thinking. And there's no right and wrong answer. Just kind of want to know where you are, what you see, what you recognize. So as I said, green means go, yellow means caution, slow down, and red means stop, don't proceed. So are they seeing the first questions? Or the questions? Because I don't see any of them. Okay. Okay, so I see we got 100%. All right. Paige, are we able to click to the next one, to the first question, so we can see that one while it's going? Okay. So your partner says that you're really not committed to the relationship because you want to go on a pre-planned girls or guys trip instead of spending time with them. Y'all awesome. So a few of y'all said, quite a few of you said yellow flag. Some of y'all said red. Well, definitely that is a yellow flag. Definitely, y'all awesome. Yeah, this was a pre-planned trip. This is a time that you want to spend with your friends. And in a healthy relationship, that's a great thing. You ought to be able to spend time with your friends without your partner and it be okay. And the fact that they saying you're not committed to the relationship because you want to be without them, it's a form of manipulation. So that's great. Y'all awesome. Great job. See the next one. Oh, look at y'all. After an argument, your partner blocks the doorway and takes your keys and prevents you from leaving. I have a few green flags. If y'all could, any of my green flags, can y'all put in the chat why y'all think it's a green flag? Any takers on my green flag? I'm looking in the chat. I don't know if it's a delay.
There's a delay, or they may have just hit the wrong thing.
Yeah. Okay. So just for the sake of time, we're going to move on. Yes, it is a red flag. That is definitely a red flag. Any force during arguments is a red flag. So great job. Great job. You and your partner, y'all awesome. I guess y'all do know some things about these relationships. Yes, you and your partner can share things, but you are able to keep some things private. Everybody has some things they would like to keep to themselves, and that is okay. That is definitely okay. Next one. Your partner randomly stops by your job, home, or dorm, even though you told them it make you uncomfortable. So I have a few yellow flags and some red flags. That is absolutely right. They're both are right because that is a yellow flag, just depending on the how early in the relationship, but it will go into that red flag. It definitely will slide into that red flag. So y'all all are correct. Great job. Great job. Because when you tell somebody and tell them that something make you uncomfortable and you don't want them to do it, they should respect that and they should listen. And if they don't, those are definitely red flags. So great job, y'all. Thank y'all so much for participating in our little polls. So y'all do know something about healthy relationships, and that's great. That's wonderful. But we will discuss in a little more some of the unhealthy ones. Great. Thank you. Your partner threatens to tell other people about your sex life. Yes, absolutely red flag. Definitely a no-go. No more. I don't care how upset you are. Things that are private, especially sex life, should remain private, and that should not be a threat. So those are threats, and that's definitely a red flag. So great job. Great job. So we are going to jump in our talk for today, which is on sexual violence, and we're going to hit on a few things. So let's get started. And so there we go. Paige already introduced me, so I'm not going to go into that. But I will, you could go to the next slide. I will give you just a kind of brief overview of InterAct, just to make sure that y'all know who we are. So we are Wake County's sole comprehensive service provider for victims of domestic and sexual violence. So we are a dual agency, and we're located on Oberlin Road in Raleigh. Next slide. We have tons of services, but I'm not going to go over all of them just for the sake of time. And at the end, I'll have our crisis line numbers, and you can check out our website for more information on our services. But I do want to highlight our since COVID, we have been 100% virtual. So our single point of contact is our 24-hour crisis lines. So we have 3 24-hour crisis lines, one in English, one in Spanish, and we do utilize a national language line for anyone that doesn't speak English or Spanish. Okay, and on our crisis lines, we do in-depth safety planning. We do connections to resources in other counties. We do our e-filing, which is domestic violence or sexual violence protective orders. All of that is done on our crisis lines. And what I like to always share is our crisis lines are not only for survivors, but they are also for yourselves, concerned citizens, for friends, for family members. So if you know someone is in an abusive relationship or maybe sexually assaulted and you want to know how to help them, but you don't know what to say, what to do, you can call our crisis lines and our crisis counselor can walk you through what those conversations can look like. Okay. And then I want to highlight our Solace Center. So our Solace Center, as I said, we are a dual agency, is one of North Carolina's only community-based sexual assault forensic examination centers. Mouthful. Basically, this is the alternative to the emergency room. If someone was sexually assaulted, they would normally go to the emergency room. But if you don't have any limbs hanging off, any blood gushing, 9 times out of 10, you'll be sitting there for a very long time. But at the Solace Center, we have a partnership with all the local hospitals, and we have forensic nurses that are trained specifically to do these rape kits on call. So if you call our crisis line, a forensic nurse can meet you at the Solace Center. And then one of the other benefits is that we have what we call SARAs. SARAs are sexual assault response advocates. And what they do is they provide emotional support for survivors as they're going through that process. So whether that is being a listening ear, whether that's talking with their family members, some people bring their family members or their spouse, if that's getting them food, whatever it is that they need, that response advocate is there for them. So that's something else that you can get at the Solace Center. And all of our services are free, and we serve in people of all gender identities as long as they are 16 and older. 16 and older. Anyone under 15 would have to go to WakeMed. But if you're 16 and older, you can call our crisis lines and you can come to the Solace Center. Okay, so that is just a quick overview of our services. And as I said, if you want more information, you can go to our website. Next slide. So let's get into what we came to talk about. So as Paige said, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So all month we're talking about this subject. So when we think about sexual violence, a lot of times we just think about just rape, but sexual violence is an umbrella term. It encompasses a whole lot of form of sexual violence. And for just the sake of our definition, it means someone that forces or manipulates someone into unwanted sexual activity without their consent. One thing I want everyone to take note of is that we get the force part. We always remember the force part, but we tend to forget about the manipulation. So it's not only someone that forced someone, or physically forced them, but manipulation. And we'll get into that a little later too. So always remember that it's not only in force, but it's also in manipulation or coercion. So if you are coercing somebody or manipulate them into sexual activity, that's still without consent. That's still under sexual violence. So that's just something I wanted to definitely point out. Next slide. And as I said to you before, there are several types of sexual violence. So rape, and that was more so really defined as forced penetration, but to a woman by a male assailant. And so a lot of times that we realized that wasn't inclusive. So a lot of places have abandoned that term and went to sexual assault. And sexual assault is any type of genital, oral, or anal penetration. So it's more encompassing. So when we talk about, you'll hear me more so say sexual assault, and that is why, because it's more encompassing. And then this is also where drug facilitated sexual assault is under this. And when we think about drug facilitated sexual assault, a lot of times we think about, somebody slipping something into someone's drink or whatever the case may be. And while that is under that, we also want you to recognize that this is also when someone encourages or really pressures someone to go beyond the limits of their comfort zone. So if I know that I'm only comfortable having 2 drinks, and after 2 drinks, I know that my capacity will be, I would go beyond I will go beyond what I'm comfortable with, and my capacity to make the right decisions may be impaired. And so that is also what drug facilitated assault covers. So someone really pressuring someone to go beyond what it is that they are comfortable with, knowing that they won't be able to consciously make rational decisions. And that's what happens. So it's not only putting something in someone's drink, but it's also pressuring or manipulating someone to go beyond what they know they can handle. Okay. And then you also have under here intimate partner sexual violence. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's something that is definitely overlooked a lot. And then you see the last one, unsolicited sexting and pictures. So this is what we're talking about, going into social media, going into pornography, all of these different websites. And this emails, whatever the case may be, any type of unsolicited pictures, words, all of that is under sexual violence. So people are harassed and they are pressured into sending inappropriate pictures, or they are shared without that person's knowledge, videos. So we all have seen different sex tapes. So all of this is under sexual violence. Next slide. So just want to kind of look at some of this, the prevalence of sexual violence, because I think sometimes we think abstractly, like, yeah, it happens, but we don't really think about that it really is happening, and it's happening to people we know, it's happening to people around us. So as you can see, it says 73 seconds, but I just did a little more research and they just updated that. So it's really now every 68 seconds. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. That's 1 out of 6 women and 1 out of 33 men have experienced some form of sexual violence. And when we think about kids, every 9 minutes, a child is sexually assaulted. And when we think about child victims, a majority of them is between the age of 12 and 17, but every 9 minutes. So that puts a lot into perspective. And I'm sitting here trying to change the slide myself. Next slide. And when we think about college campuses, we see that 13% of all students have experienced some form of sexual violence. And when we think about transgender, genderqueer, or nonconforming, 23.1% have experienced sexual violence. And only 1 in 5 of college students will report that. And so although statistically, maybe on your college campus or other college campus, the statistics may be low, or, but it's not because it's not happening. It's because it's a very underreported crime. It's very underreported. So when we think about that, just really take that into consideration, that it's not happening. It's just not being reported. And when we think about college campuses, we tend to think that they are, safe, and, this is a safe environment. And I think a lot of times that is also what perpetrators take advantage of. They take advantage of the fact that people feel safe on their college campuses, and we should feel safe, but we still want to think about being vigilant, because that is something that perpetrators take advantage of. And it said that college women are 2 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than they are to be robbed. So really not thinking about robbery as much as we do sexual assault. Next slide. So with that being said, when we think about sexual violence and we think about perpetrators, who do we think about? Who do we think are those perpetrators? 9 times out of 10, most of us think that it's the stranger in the bushes. We think about that perpetrator, we thinking that, the campus is safe, and we picture this person, this stranger that came on campus and hiding in the bushes and jump out and grab somebody. But in actuality, you can hit the slide again. In actuality, 8 out of 10 rapes are committed by someone you know. 39% is acquaintances, and 33% are former partners, current or former partners. So yes, we do have that 19.5% of strangers, somebody in the bushes, but the majority is happening by someone that we know. And we say that because it's important for us to put that into perspective, because I think that a lot of times, because we're so focused on the stranger danger, we don't realize that the real threat can be someone we know. And we miss those signs, those indications. And when we think about children, 93% of them know their abuser, the family knows them. because it's really the access when it comes to children. But in both cases, it's someone that we know. And not saying that to scare people, but just to really give that reality check that it is usually someone that we know. Next slide. So when we're thinking about the fact that this sexual violence is happening with people that we know, acquaintances or current or former partners, we have to really start to think about consent and what that looks like. What is consent? And we see that it's a mutual agreement, but it's an ongoing conversation. That's really what it is. It's an ongoing conversation because there's that agreement that we said, we was going to do X, Y, and Z. And it's, you express that, but I think that it's an ongoing conversation. So when we think about consent, can your consent be withdrawn? Can we have had a conversation yesterday or earlier and I changed my mind? Can I withdraw my consent? Can consent be withdrawn? You can hit that slide. Absolutely. Withdrawn, consent can always be withdrawn. And that's just the date of the statute that said that under the law that consent can be withdrawn. When can it be withdrawn? It can be withdrawn at any time. At any time. That means before. So we had that agreement. We said this was the time, the date. This is when we was going to do X, Y, and Z. I can change my mind. During, we getting into it. It's hot and heavy. And I can change my mind. I can say, nope, that's it. And after. And people are like, what do you mean after? After, because one consent is not a consent for all. So I may have consented for that particular time, but it doesn't mean that it's a yes for every time after. So before, during, and after, I can withdraw my consent. And that is supposed to be respected anytime. Next slide. And this is just worth mentioning. As I said to you before, that the Solace Center only serve people that are 16 and older. And this is why. Because in North Carolina, the age of consent is 16 years old. You must be 16 years old to legally consent to any type of sexual activity. So just note that children cannot give consent at all, period. Children cannot give consent. So we serve those that are able to give consent, which is 16 years old in North Carolina. So just keep that in mind, that if someone is under 16, children cannot give consent. Next slide. And if y'all have any comments or anything, you could feel free to put them in the chat. If there's something burning you want to say. And as I said to you before, consent is an ongoing conversation. And that's when we think about consent, we have this term called enthusiastic consent. Enthusiastic consent. Because when we think about consent, yes, there always should be a verbal agreement. It should be verbal. It should be freely given to someone by someone. But it should be an ongoing conversation because, as I said, I might have agreed to one thing, but maybe I'm not comfortable with something else. So when we think about consent, think about it ongoingly with every act. So maybe I consented to touching, but maybe we need to have a conversation if you want to go beyond that. Maybe I had consented to some type of oral activity. But if you want to do something else, there should be another conversation. And the purpose of this is to make sure that both parties are comfortable, they're in enjoyment, and they have this mutual understanding of what is going to happen, what is happening. It's checking in. So it's just, we had a conversation before doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it now. And then also, it's not just only the verbal. Yes, we want the verbal, it's very important. But let's also look at our body language, gestures. Because if I'm saying yes, but I'm like holding, my arms across my body, or I look like I'm stiff and I'm not moving, I have this scared look on my face, then maybe it's not really yes. Maybe it's not a yes. Because then that's when we talked about before about coercion, manipulation. Sometimes people are even fearful. So if the body language, it's like you talk having any kind of conversation, saying, you know what, I'm happy to see you. But you rolling your eyes and you looking the other way, that would kind of tell me that maybe you really are not happy to see me. So it's the same thing when we think about consent. My body language, my gestures, how I'm interacting with you should be in agreement to what I'm saying. If I'm saying yes and I'm in agreement with this, then my body language, my gestures should all be in alignment with that. So when we think about enthusiastic consent, we are not just looking for the absence of no, but we're looking for enthusiastic yes. It goes, my gestures and everything that I do goes along with what I am saying. Okay, so think about that ongoing conversation. My gestures, my body language, all should match up to what I'm saying. And if that is not happening, then there should be a stop in the activity and there should be another conversation. Next slide. And so, as I just said, everything should be in alignment. And so when we think about consent, real consent, enthusiastic consent, it does not look like this. It doesn't look like someone gotten consent from someone, but they just kind of refusing. I'm saying yes, or I'm saying yes with my mouth, but I'm like this, and you just not acknowledging it. You just keep on going. You just keep on going because you refuse to acknowledge, that I'm saying no. And like I said, even though verbally I might say yes, just know that out of fear or intimidation, my body language is still showing no. Then there's guilt and pressuring, intimidation, like I said. And the partner is disengaged, unresponsive. You're taking off my clothes and I'm just standing there and I'm just frozen. That's not consent. That's not consent. And as I said before with the drug facilitated sexual assault, if I am under the influence, if I have had some type of alcohol or drugs, I don't know my name, I don't know where I am, I can't consent. I'm knocked out, I cannot consent. There is no consent in that. If I'm incapacitated, I'm unable to have a clear thought, is not consent. And assuming just because we had sexual activity in the past does not mean that it's okay this time. Each time needs another conversation. And I keep emphasizing that because these conversations are not happening, but they need to when we think about consent. Next slide. So this is something that I have now thought about including in these presentations, is about consent within dating relationships. Because oftentimes when we think about consent, we think about, like we talk about acquaintances, somebody you met one night stand. We think about all of that, but we don't think about consent in a serious dating relationship or a committed relationship. We don't really think about consent. But so my question to you all is, do dating partners or spouse need to get consent from their partners? Should consent be a matter of conversation within a committed relationship? And I don't know, I know we said it's a delay in the chat, but I really want to know what people think about that. because oftentimes I think that we don't have the same expectations or the same things, the same requirements that on our partners, our, you know, these people that we say that we really care for or we've been with for a long time. I don't know if we have that same expectations for them. But for the sake of time, yes, thank you. Thank you, Dania. Um, Sarah, you can hit the slide. You're right. Yes, yes, there should be conversations around consent. Yes, always. Sarah, you can hit the slide again. Yes, yeah, on the ball. Absolutely. Consent is not automatic. Consent is not automatic within a dating or committed relationship. Thank you all. Y'all on the ball. No, it's not automatic. Me and my husband have been together for 20 years now, married 18. Consent is still a conversation because, yes, sometimes I want to, and sometimes I don't. Yes, maybe you want to try something new. No, maybe I don't want to try that. So it's an ongoing conversation. It's an on conversation. It may look different for other couples, but yes, consent is always required. Consent is a conversation. The conversation may sound different, but it should be a conversation nevertheless. Always a conversation about what we introduce, what we're going to do, and everybody should be on the same page. And I brought up this conversation or this question because dealing with domestic violence, this is not always the case. Next slide. And within domestic violence, within intimate partner violence, sexual violence is a weapon. It's a form of abuse. And a lot of times, abusers believe that, you know, any sexual activity is a right, it's a given. And it should be on demand and it should be in any form that they feel, regardless of how the partner feels, regardless if the survivor likes it, don't like it, comfortable with it, it doesn't matter. It's about what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. And that's why that is a matter of a conversation, because if this is not happening within a relationship, that's a red flag. If that is not happening, if your partner is not concerned about your comfortability, your likes, your dislikes, and they are manipulating or forcing you to engage in sexual activity that you're not comfortable with, that's abuse. But we don't think about that when it comes to our partners. And so that's why this is definitely a matter of conversation. Next slide. And these were some of the forms of abuse that we teach when we're thinking about domestic violence. These are some of the things that the types of abuse that we see survivors, you know, they isolated from their family and friends. They endure emotional and psychological abuse, that verbal abuse. And then you see right at that top, that sexual abuse, because it's a form of control. And it goes whether they are destroying contraceptives or preventing someone from receiving contraceptives. This is even refusing to engage in safe sexual practices. So people are getting sexually transmitted diseases, and they refuse to practice safe sex. This is when pornography is introduced, and it's not just that person watching pornography, but they're forcing their partners to engage in whatever they see on this pornography. So pictures, videos, so all of this, and this is, as you can see from this pyramid, these are forms of abuse that people within intimate partner violence experience. Next slide. And these are the other two forms They can't fit on the pyramid. Financial and spiritual. But we see these forms of abuse all the time. Financial, spiritual. If faith means anything to them, they use that to manipulate them into doing whatever it is that they need to do. So these are just um, some of the forms of abuse that we experience. People that's into partner violence experience. Next slide. And I just thought that it was good visualization for y'all to see and know that this is happening within relationships, and sexual violence is a big part of that. And as y'all kept hearing me say red flags. So red flags are behaviors that you may observe from a person that is an abuser. And that's just simply put, these are some of the behaviors that you will see and notice from someone that is potentially an abuser. And really the same thing that we did with that activity, we list these types of these type of behaviors so that if you notice them, then you can decide, maybe I should stop this relationship. Maybe I should get out, or if you're already fully into it, that, you start thinking about an exit plan. Because we talked about the crisis lines where they help you with safety planning. But when we think about these different behaviors, this controlling behavior, it kind of starts out where that person is, saying that they just really want to know where you're going and who you're talking to, just because, for your own safety. You want to make sure you're safe. They want to make sure that people are not taking advantage of you, and all of these different things. They try to make it seem innocent. But what happens is they start to control every bit of the person's life, what they wear, where they go, who they talk to, how long they stay, the way that they wear their hair, their gesture. They try to change everything about that person, and they control every aspect of their life, how they spend their money, if they go to school, if they don't, what they major in. They begin to control every aspect of their life. But it starts off, it seems like it's innocent. But it's really not. Jealousy, really enraged jealousy, that it doesn't matter who it is that you're talking to. It could be a family member, coworker, a professor. You want somebody or somebody want you. It's always some form of jealousy. And then it still goes back into the clothes and what you wear and how you talk to that person. And that's where they begin to isolate you from family and friends, because they don't want you talking to that friend because they want you or you want them or something like that. And one thing I want you to always know about abusive relationships, they evolve very quickly. So you see that quick involvement, talking 3 to 6 months, and someone is making life decisions, getting married, moving across the country, you dropping out of school, we buying a home together, we having kids. It's very quick, and that's usually because the abuser can't, put up that facade for too long. But the two other ones I really want to highlight is, and you see we have in quotations, playful use of force in sex. And this is what we was talking about, where the abuser really don't care about the comfortability of the partner during sex. And so they will do different things, whether or not you consent, whether or not you're comfortable or enjoy it. It's really about their satisfaction. So just really be mindful of that. And then past batterings, I think that this is a red flag that we take for granted, or a lot of people really don't pay attention to. And I always encourage people, listen to the stories, listen to what the person tells you about their past. Listen to why they gave the excuse as to why they had to hit their partner, or why they had to, prevent them from having access to the money, or why they had to drag them down the steps. Whatever it is that they've done in the past, they usually tell on themselves. Just listen to the stories. And if you know what you're listening for, you'll hear it. Listen to past friends and family. Don't discount what they're telling you because that person tries to say, oh, it was the other one. That person was crazy. It was their fault. listen, because sometimes family and friends will say, hey, oh, that past partner, what they did to them, and they kind of let you in on the person that you're dealing with. So past patterns, past behaviors, those are really good indications of the person that you're messing with. So really take into account, listen to what they're saying, and if you have access to family and friends, just listen. Just listen. And a lot of times it will give you insight into the real person. Okay, so these are just some of the red flags that you'll see, and we talked about any force during an argument. See how they relate to children and animals. Those are also indications of an abuser. So these are all just red flags to let you know that maybe you should think about stopping this relationship. Next slide. And these are some of the signs, and I'm gonna wrap up real quick so that y'all have time if y'all have any questions. But these are some of the signs of sexual and domestic violence. So the top one, if someone has been sexually assaulted, these are some of the common signs that we see: depression, persistent sadness, loss of appetite. You see that their demeanor sometimes begins to change, where they are no longer as outgoing or fun and as they used to be. Sometimes even in their hygiene may change, where they are no longer taking care of themselves. The way that they dress, you see, may be different. Also, just watch out. They might have some anxiety about different situations or places where they did it in the past. Going to certain places may really fluster them. See that their grades are failing. They're withdrawing from classes or from certain activities that they may have been involved in. They no longer want to be involved with that. Somebody that wasn't into drugs and alcohol before may or if they was, it was very casual, and now they begin to increase. So a lot of times these are some of the signs that you see that someone was sexually assaulted. Now, don't get me wrong, it could be other things in their life, but because we are talking about sexual assault, these are some of the signs that we see. And then if you see signs that someone may be in an abusive relationship and they are experiencing some sexual violence, as I mentioned to you before, they are withdrawing from different activities, or they might mention that their partner don't want them to take contraceptives, or telling them not to go to the doctor to get these contraceptives, or they refuse to use condoms and other safe sex things, and maybe they have gotten some form of disease from that. But their partner is refusing, or you can even see their partner answering. You trying to talk with them, they answer all the questions. You see them maybe answering their phones, have control over their social media accounts. These are all just kind of indications that somebody may need help. They might be in an abusive relationship. And so these are some of the signs, and that, as we talked to you before about calling our crisis lines, and maybe talking that over with the crisis counselors to kind of see the best form of action, or even talking with that person about it. Next slide. So if you do witness some of those signs with someone, or somebody come out and talk with you about it, these are some of the things that we encourage. Just listen to people without judgment. This is not the time to tell them what you think. You should have done that. Why didn't you do that? Why did you go there? Why? Questioning them, making them the blame. Don't do that. Just listen without judgment. And these are, some of the things you can say, you're not alone. I'm here for you. But one of the things that I like to tell people, the best thing you can do in this situation is listen without judgment. But the next thing is asking them how you can help. Don't give them your help or what you think they should do. No, let them take the lead. Ask them how you can support them, how you can be there for them, what they want you to do. Maybe they don't want you to contact law enforcement. Maybe they don't want to. Let them take the lead. So ask them how you can support them and respect their decision. Ask them how you can help them and respect their decision. Okay? So those are just some of the things that you can do to support anyone that may be in an abusive relationship or may have been sexually assaulted. They're really going to need support during this time, and that's the best way that you can support is to ask them how they would like it, and then hooking them up with resources is also really, really great because you don't have to be the expert, but that's what we have InterAct for. We have y'all have a women's center or some place like that where you can go and talk to someone or find out about the resources that are available. So that's another way that you can also support is by helping them find out what resources are available to them. Okay, and I think that that's it. Next slide. This was just about our Solace Center, and I'll talk to you about that already. So you can just go on to the next slide. Next one, Sarah, right there. Yeah. So these are our crisis line numbers, and RAIN is a great support, a great resource for sexual violence. That's the national. That's the national number. So these are all great resources for you and anybody that you may know that have experienced sexual violence. So do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Well, Paige and Claire, while we're waiting for these questions to come in, do y'all have any comments, questions?
I just want to make sure students know, y'all have no idea how grateful we've always been to Sharice and to InterAct. If you ever in your gut, whether it is for you or someone else, feel uncomfortable, listen to it. I know icky does not sound like a scientific term, but if you feel icky, if just something is going off on those bells, call them, because I have had, unfortunately, a lot of students who have had to use their services or seek their guidance, but I'm so grateful that they're there. So you can ask them anything you want to ask. If you're not comfortable asking today because it's on chat, go to them afterwards. I would love to say that there's not a need for this. There is a massive need for this. The need is actually growing worse because of the pandemic. Numbers are going up. The red zone that I mentioned yesterday, those higher levels of sexual assault, the red zone is no longer truly existent because we suddenly have people who have not been together for a while or who are going to parties for the first time in a while. And so InterAct is one of these amazing organizations that will help you. They listen without judgment, and they are not asking male, female, trans in terms of that. They are supporting the community as a whole. So I really encourage it. So any questions for our speaker? And if not, while I'm waiting, just in case someone types it in the chat, we're going to put a survey link up because we'd like to get some feedback on what you want. If anyone wants to be involved next fall, we've already talked about doing a painting event, we always have InterAct because we want that connection. Studies show that having that first meeting opens the doors and makes people more comfortable. So if you have any questions for our speaker, go ahead and put them in. In the meantime, before we close out, let me tell you about tomorrow. Tomorrow are campus resources, because a lot of times students don't think about the fact that sexual assault impacts campus life, and it impacts your going to school or your friend. Harassment, sexual harassment, we all have our phones, and I don't know how many of you think about the fact that maybe once in a while someone uses it in a way they shouldn't, or cyber flashes or sends you something you're not comfortable with, and you think, well, I need to be an adult and ignore it. But we don't want you to ignore it. We want you to come to us. This is part of why InterAct is such a huge part of Wake County, is that they provide all sorts of resources. So not just you're attacked and beaten, you're uncomfortable, you're not sure what's going on. I also, before we do close out though, I realize I need to talk about tomorrow's event, which is posted. This will be campus resources, including Dean Wirt, Dean of Conduct, Title IX, because a lot of people aren't sure what they do, and they're great advocacy and support for our students. Wellness services. But Sharice, before we do close out, you have an initiative coming up I'd love for them to hear about so they could pass the word. the Faith Initiative?
Yes, so we have what we call it. It's an initiative for faith leaders, and it's called the Circle of Faith. And what it is we're doing a 9-month training for faith leaders, specifically for them to come in and learn about domestic and sexual violence, so that they will be able to have the skills that they need to counsel and intervene in their faith community. So it's very important because, as I showed y'all on that slide very briefly, that spiritual abuse is very big. So if you are one that has faith and your faith means a lot to you, to have someone use it against you is a problem. And statistically, we know that in the faith communities, we have victims of domestic and sexual violence. And so, to really be a resource, we want to give them what they need to be able to help the people that they are shepherding or they are. Around in their faith community. So that's the initiative that we have. It's starting April 26th, and it's once a month. And so Claire and Paige have the information on that. So if anyone is interested, you can contact them and they will give you my information that you can pass along to one of the faith leaders that you may know, because it's invaluable and it's very needed in the community. So thank you so much for this space to talk about that. But Circle of Faith is specifically for faith leaders. So if you know a faith leader that you think, or your place of worship that may be benefit from this program, please get in touch with us.
And thank you for that. Kiana was saying thank you for the information. Chloe, it sounds like you actually addressed what Chloe was wondering about who can help the victims. Some of you may be like me and be a Law and Order junkie. And Law and Order SVU, Mariska Hargitay, who is, Vincent on there. Someone asked, isn't it difficult to talk about sexual assault and domestic abuse? And Mariska's answer was, it is difficult. That's why we need to talk about it. We need to have these conversations anyway. And that's the thing. It may not be any of you, and I hope and pray it isn't, that experience this, but you may hear of someone or know of someone. And it takes a community to work together to know of these resources. And again, InterAct has been absolutely phenomenal for students. For those of you who say, well, did they tell you about the student? No, the students came to us after events and we sent them over. So they will not tell on you. You can go to them with 100% confidence that they protect you over anyone else. I mean, that is their job. So InterAct, we are so grateful to you. So grateful.
Yeah, Claire, I want to jump on that. Legally, VAWA, Women Violence Against Women Act, legally, as an agency, we cannot share anything. We will not. We are legally obligated to keep confidentiality. So no matter who refers someone to us, once they are in our hands, everything is confidential. And that goes for law enforcement, anyone. We cannot share anything with anyone without written consent from the survivor. So just know that legally we cannot share anything.
Thank you for that. And again, an emphasis. I don't care if you're male, female, trans. I do not care your identification. If you are concerned, if you are compromised, please go. And Kiana was asking about, is there a certain age requirement? I'm not sure if you mean for them to serve you. The Solace Center is 16 and up.
Right.
Under 16, you do need to go to
Wake Med. But for our crisis lines, you can call any age. You still can call, but specifically for the Solace Center, if you're under, you can call and we can kind of coordinate that. But you will have to be seen at Wake Med if you're under 16. But for any of our other services, even children are welcome to call our crisis lines.
Yeah, and I was a counselor before I was a professor. No crisis line is going to say, what age are you, and hang up on you. Always call, because they're sitting there. They are ready to give you those resources and help you. So absolutely anytime. And again, big thank you. Sharice gives us so much time and so much
Yes.
information, and y'all have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. So thank
Yes.
you, and thank you to InterAct
Thank
for
you.
everything you do. For those who are wondering if you ever want to contact us so that you can contact them, we'd be glad to pass on that information. So that is it. Professor Roseman, anything?
I think you covered it. I really do. Thank you so much, Sharice. I so appreciated all the thoughtful questions that you invited us to consider just throughout this. You know, our mindsets and things we take for granted, and just in the spirit of our first presentation this week, that kind of lifelong learning around healthy relationships. I think that's just huge. So, thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I see some thank yous in the chat as well, and I see. Kiana, I would like to keep these links if I could. Um, let's see. And I think there's more than one way to share those links too. Hopefully you can grab those from the chat. And Kiana, you might want to tell us which links. Sorry, if those are the event links or you wanted other specific links. Sorry, I know there's a lag time with the chat.
I'll tell you what, the other thing is, remember, you can always reach out to either one of us and we can send you the links. We won't send you the full presentation, that's hers and her directive, but links for the resources, we can absolutely get those to you. Email either one of us, we can pull them down and get them over to you. And as a reminder, tomorrow, 12:30, our last event for Promise Day week, and we'll be talking about the campus resources, because a lot of times students don't know, but we want to be involved and we want to help you. That's part of your success. So that is it. Thank you, Sharice, and thank you to InterAct for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. And we hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.